From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
I was always very thankful that I made it.
Betsy Gibbon with the story of one veteran who touched her life. When more people are choosing to live in the country. And our top story, markets react on USDA news as crops get smaller and supplies pile up.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA out with new crop production numbers. Corn and soybean yields both down this month, although corn remains on track to have the highest yield and second highest production on record. USDA is forecasting the average corn yield at 178.9 bushels to the acre. That's down 1.8 bushels from October, but still up from last year. The cut to production was largely due to falling yields in Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, and South Dakota. As for soybeans, USDA calling for an average yield of 52 bushels per acre, down just a tick from last month.
There was some increases for some of the major corn-producing states. Ohio was increased, Indiana stayed constant. Some of the other major corn-producing states were lowered in terms of their average yield. In terms of a national yield, even though we dropped at 1.8 bushels, this is still a record for us, but it's the second largest production because we had lower acreage than we've had last couple years due to switches to soybeans.
We also have new cotton numbers. Production forecast at 18.4 million 480-pound bales. That's down 7% from October, but yield expected to average 852 pounds per harvested acre. That's off 49 pounds from last month and down 53 pounds from last year. The other side of the report showing stocks continuing to grow. Corn ending stocks are 1.7 billion bushels. That's down 77 million from last month. Corn exports reduced 25 million bushels based on expectations of increased competition from the Ukraine. As for soybeans, U.S. soybean stocks projected 955 million bushels, up 70 million from last month. USDA reducing exports on lower import projections for China.
This has to do with a reduction to the export forecast for beans. This all, of course, relates back to the U.S.-China trade dispute. They cut the export projection by 160 million bushels. That's about 8% versus last month. So despite the yield decline in beans, we still saw a larger carryout projection.
One of the biggest surprises in the report coming in adjustments to Chinese corn stocks. USDA adjusting its numbers for production and domestic consumption of corn in China. That meant boosting world stocks by 159 million metric tons from the previous month to 307 million metric tons.
This is a 10-year revision to the Chinese corn numbers. So what does it mean? Initially the market started with a bang, 5-6 cents higher, currently trading about a nickel lower. I don't think the market knows what to make of it. I don't know if we know what to make of it. These adjustments are on previous supply, so does it matter? Maybe not, maybe so, but we'll find out shortly how the market really wants to go with this. It does change the line items on the tables, but it may not change the actual supply and movement of corn, both domestically and worldwide.
China's soybean imports jumping nearly a fifth last month. Reuters reporting the country's stocked up on Brazilian beans because of worries over U.S.-China trade war. Now, China is the world's top soybean buyer. The General Administration of Customs saying the country bought almost 7 million tons of soybeans last month. That's up 18% from the same time last year. China and the U.S. could be bringing a thaw to the trade war during the G20 summit in Argentina later this month. China's President Xi Jinping saying, quote, a deep exchange of views is expected at the meeting. Xi meeting with former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Xi saying after that meeting that China wants to resolve differences with the U.S., but that America has to respect China's development path and interests. China and Russia are pledging deeper economic cooperation, including collaboration in energy supply, investments, and agriculture. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang held talks with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev in Beijing. At this news conference, Medvedev noting that Russia's interest in exporting Russian agriculture, including soybeans, to China. Rural populations are rising. That's according to a study by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It shows rural population increased by 0.1%, or about 33,000 people. It attributes the growth to people moving from urban to rural areas, as well as people immigrating from other countries. Researchers say declining rural unemployment, rising incomes, and lower poverty appear to also be factors. Total rural population is about 46.1 million people. Harvest finally coming to an end in portions of the country. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman shares the relief that many farmers are feeling right now in today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. A sign of relief going up for many producers. The harvest season is finally over. Kerry Baldwin shared this photo with us. Kerry lives in eastern North Dakota. He says this photo shows the last 8 rows for harvest 2018. But there appears to still be some work to be done for other folks in North Dakota. USDA reporting 49% of the corn crop is actually harvested. And taking a look at the drought monitor, you can see we are definitely on the dry side out west, but hey, you know what? It is getting better everywhere east of there. We'll have details on your forecast coming up. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Coming up, honoring our veterans.
I looked up in the sky, and it was just planes and just glider pilots and so forth.
Betsy Gibbon shares a very personal story of service and survival coming up in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by Corvus Corn Herbicide from Bayer. Get an early season win against weeds with Corvus for end of season rewards.
The Federal Reserve announcing it is leaving interest rates unchanged for now. The central bank saying economic activity has been rising at a strong rate and job gains, well, they've been strong as well. It repeated its outlook for further gradual rate increases, keeping the door open for a 4th 2018 hike next month. Big losses early after the new crop production and WASDE numbers were released. Let's get more now from the CME.
We saw corn trading in a really wide range. Now we're looking at some very key technicals going forward on a closing basis. 370 on support is going to be a must-hold area for the bulls, and break and close below here, I think, puts a little bit more pressure on the market. On top of that, we have a seasonally weak time of year. In fact, if you had sold November 8th and bought back November 18th, you would have been profitable for 13 of the last 15 years with an average profit of just about 11 cents. So something to keep in mind there. Now moving over to the wheat market. Wheat, kind of trading in a little bit of a range as well. 5 to 520 has been the pocket that we've been looking at, and really there hasn't been a whole lot of conviction, just kind of lingering right in the middle of that range over the past several sessions. This has been Oliver Slope with Blue Line Futures from the floor of the CME.
We caught up with one of our favorite analysts, Bill Biederman, today here on the Agribusiness Desk. Bill, let's talk about 2019 because there's some. Well, I mean, we've got to do this again next year. And so as we get ready to start a fresh year, what are your thoughts about where we're at and where we're headed?
Okay, well, I think the first thing you have to do is determine, have we bottomed?
Sure.
And I think it's safe to say we are. I mean, soybeans are 60 cents off their low. Corn is 27 cents off its low right now. So the lows are in. 360 corn is cheap corn. End users are buying the crud out of it. So
right. Okay.
We're good there. Going into next year, and another thing about the old crop, our demand is running really good on corn.
Okay.
Not so good on wheat, okay? But you're probably going to revise this year's carryover down on corn. Mm-hmm. If you only add 2 million acres, we're going to go from, let's just say, a 1.7 carryover. Demand is so powerful on corn. You'll probably be down to a 1.5. And if you shift 2 million acres to corn and 2 million to wheat carryover will stay right around 1 billion bushel.
Okay.
So that's pretty fair, and that's positive, and it means that we should see average prices get hit. Average price of corn, the 10-year weighted average is $4.60.
Okay.
In wheat it's like $6.40. So we're way underpriced. It's a great opportunity for end users to buy this. If we shift 4 million acres to corn, it's a break even. Carryover stays the same.
Okay.
So anything 4 or less, I think it's a pretty solid outlook, and I think it's going to give real opportunity to producers.
So how do you make that decision as we start a new year? What numbers are you trying to check off here?
Okay, so like for the farms I work with, and some of them are in adverse areas where basis is really wide, terrible.
Sure.
It's like North Dakota. But bottom line is, when we get up over $4, like 409 is the number I'm using, we're going to get started. We're going to get sold enough grain so we can pay the chemicals and the seed. Get the basics out of the way.
Right.
And then from there, we'll scale up. I mean, honestly, if we've had 6 good years of good weather, You know, I mean, if we have one bit, I mean, we're already saying we should hit average price with what we have. If you have bad weather, it could go crazy. So
Sure.
we'll scale up from the low $4 area.
All right, so start thinking about it. Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To talk with Bill Biederman one-on-one, call Allendale Incorporated at 815-404-1917 or head online to allendale-inc.com. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Mike Hoffman. And Mike, first snow of the season for big parts of the country.
Yeah, lots of farm country. Central northern plains into the Great Lakes. That's Great Lakes going to continue to spread eastward from there. And this is a pretty strong storm system right now, pretty close to Cincinnati. It's wrapping up pretty good, so it's going to go northward for a while before weakening and then moving off to the east. Down along the cold front, we're looking at some showers, even some thunderstorms from the eastern Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, all the way down into southeastern and southern Texas. High pressure building into most of the northern plains and the west. This is pretty cold air coming into the plain states. Putting this map into motion, you'll notice the area of low pressure goes northeastward first of all into the central Great Lakes. It'll be raining in most of Pennsylvania, southern New York as we head through the late afternoon hours tomorrow. But the snow comes in all the way down into parts of southern Missouri, southern Illinois. That won't be too much in the way of accumulation, but near Lake Michigan, you could see a few inches of snow in places downwind from that. Western Michigan, extreme northern Indiana, maybe even 2 or 3 inches. There's the next system coming into Montana with a little bit of snow. That moves into North Dakota and also northern Wyoming as we head into tomorrow morning to start the weekend. Lake effect snow still flying across most of the western Great Lakes, and that colder air continues to come eastward. The cold front all the way down into northern Florida, and by later in the day on Saturday, it's all the way down into southern Florida. So even the folks in Florida are going to feel a little bit of the chill behind this cold front. Next, snow coming across Minnesota and North Dakota by later in the day tomorrow. So precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours. You can see some amounts across South Texas all the way up into the eastern Ohio Valley. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see most of it's going to be from the Appalachians eastward and southeastward across the southeast and eastern portions of the country. Everything else is real light, and this is actually melted snow in those areas. So let's check out snowfall amounts past 24 hours. These are estimated. And adding in the next 36 hours, a lot of it's going to be lake effect. And like I said, some areas downwind from some of these Great Lakes could see a few inches of sloppy, wet snow out of this system. And we see a little bit more snow coming across Montana into North Dakota as we head into the first half of the weekend. This afternoon, highs only in the teens in the far northern plains. 40s all the way down into the central plains, still 80 in Jacksonville. Low temperatures tonight going to drop off into the teens in a large area, northern half of the plains. Still 62 in Jacksonville. I keep mentioning that because the high tomorrow only 69 there. That's that chilly air, but it's 20s and 30s farther north. There's the jet stream, and the reason we're cold are these troughs just keep digging into the northern plains and the Great Lakes. You can see into next week. We still see that with one more piece of energy coming toward the end of the week into the Great Lakes. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, for Page, Arizona, mostly sunny and chilly today. High temperature of 53. El Dorado, Arkansas, cool with a mix of sun and clouds, high of 58. And finally, Elmira, New York, times of rain and snow, high around 40.
Can anything be done to lower ammonia levels from cattle? There may now be a medicine for cows that could help. We have details next. We've been keeping you updated on the annual Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas. More than 400 dairy producers and industry members taking part. They talked about everything from the markets to new technology. Farm Journal's Milk also did some polling to see what's on producers' minds. Here's what they're saying. 57% expect their mailbox milk check to stay the same next year. 47% of those asked believe China is the trading partner that's most important to U.S. dairy. That's followed by Mexico. Labor continues to be a big issue. 59% say the unstable labor supply will be their biggest challenge next year. This is pretty interesting, especially for dairy and beef producers. The FDA approving a new drug that could reduce ammonia gas in cattle. The drug called Experior. A study proving the drug was effective at reducing ammonia gas from manure after being fed to beef cattle. Researchers say the product is safe to feed to cattle and doesn't affect the safety of the meat that people eat. Veterans Day coming up Sunday, and we have a special story to share with you. A member of the greatest generation and a farmer shares his story of his time served during World War II. Next, In the Country.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota's BV 4580 round baler. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs says there are less than 500,000 out of 16 million World War II veterans still alive. Now, of those members of the so-called Greatest Generation, Lieutenant Howard Douglas Opheim, the grandfather of our very own Betsy Gibbon. Betsy Gibbon joins us now with her grandfather's incredible story right ahead of Veterans Day. Betsy.
Clinton, that dwindling number is why I decided to interview my grandfather when I had the opportunity back in August. Kneeling next to my grandfather in his home, I catch him reading, as he often does. This time, the 96-year-old is entrenched in memories of Operation Varsity.
I was always very thankful that I made it.
Dawn, 24th March, south of Paris. Paratroopers begin to assemble for the greatest single airborne operation in all history. From nearby French airfields, the paratroopers take off.
The assault took place east of the Rhine River. Lieutenant Howard Douglas Opheim flew one of the 1,600 transport aircraft carrying paratroopers and supplies.
I looked up in the sky, and there was just planes and just glider pilots and so forth, as far as you could see.
Lieutenant Opheim's C-47 plane full of 20-plus paratroopers soared at 1,500 feet. Anything below or above was too dangerous, knowing he'd likely never see any of them again.
There weren't very many of those boys that we dropped paratroopers that ever survived.
That mission wasn't exactly what my grandfather had in mind when he dreamed of becoming a pilot. Born November 1921, the Faribault, Minnesota native grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It was there he watched and admired Charles Lindbergh as he glided above him in flight during the 1920s.
I thought, boy, that'd be a good thing to get into, the flying business.
He enrolled at South Dakota State University before enlisting in the Army Air Corps in 1942, earning his wings in 1944.
An awful lot of my buddies didn't make it through. They couldn't fly good enough, you see. But I managed to get through that.
He flew C-47s after aspirations of becoming a fighter pilot dimmed when training flights made him sick.
I couldn't take that real tight turns, so I didn't get to be a fighter pilot.
What are your memories of flying a C-47?
Well, it was a real good airplane, but you know, it was slow. And we trained for, it seemed like forever in England before we really got into combat.
Pretty routine, except for one unusual day.
Here this fighter pilot, a German fighter pilot, came and flew right alongside of us. He was either out of ammunition or I don't know why, but he gave us a whirl like that. And then he turned it off and flew away.
Until finally, welcoming news scratched across the radio during one of his flights.
And that particular day, Japan capitulated. That made us very happy.
Could you point out your route? As I continue to kneel, I grab for more stories and hang on to his every word. As these heroes pass, I speak for my family and so many others. We wish we had another day with you. We are thankful for the time we had, the lives lived, and will hold these memories tight. As Americans, your service will not be forgotten. My grandpa passed away in late October. Grandpa, I know you're watching, and most of all, I know you're flying again in heaven.
Beautiful story. Thank you, Betsy, for sharing it. And we want to thank all the veterans this weekend for their service. That's all the time we have on Ag Day. Thanks for tuning in. And for all of us here, have a great one.